This massive amplifier and preamp in front of us is the Parasound P6 preamp and the A21 Plus amp. Now, Parasound's been around for a long time and their sound has held true through the years, and this is something that can take your system to the next level and give it a whole new powerful sound that you may have never heard before, and it's very flexible with several types of speakers. But if you're not familiar with Parasound, here's where this falls in line.
So Parasound has a few lines. They start with the New Classic line is their entry level, and then you get to the Halo, which we have here, and then above this is the John Curl series, which is all designed by John Curl. He does an incredible job. So we have basically the middle of their series.
The larger of the middle. I mean, look at this thing. You know how hard it is to film this video with an amp on this table about the size of the table that's almost taller than us?
Yeah, I mean, we're basically like squeezed off to the side, and it takes up the whole thing. It's a little awkward, but we do have the separates, the P6 preamp and the A21 Plus power amp. They do have a A23 Plus power amp option, which is a little smaller. And
same size as the P6.
Yes,
which is the one you have at home.
Yeah,
that's why it's not in the video.
I do love, but yeah, thank you. But yeah, same form factor as the P6. Obviously, the A21 is a lot bigger. The Hint 6 is essentially a P6 and A23 Plus combined into an integrated amp.
So it's a little bit less expensive because everything just fits in one box, easier for shipping and all that stuff. But separates are a great way to do things.
They are. I mean, they're more fun. They fill up the rack a lot easier, and you can, everything inside the power amp is all about powering your speakers, and everything in the preamp is all about being a preamp. So the audio path is a lot more pure, just being able to separate all the electronics into two totally different cases.
Which gives them more room to do their actual designs of things. When people make integrated amps, typically something's got to give. Either the preamp's got to give or the amp's got to give to fit it in the box. And while it might not give much, because really it's kind of the same thing, it's going to be a little bit different when it's in one box. So that's why separates are also a good thing.
It should perform a little better, and the sound should be a little less foggier.
And you can do fun things. You can change cables. You can have some fun with other stuff too.
Yeah.
Let's start with the P6, the preamp. Now it's a preamp and a DAC. The preamp is what is going to control your volume, but there is some options on the amplifier as well. Going on the front, you have the digital display that's right next to the volume control. The volume control feels really nice.
It's a non-linear volume knob.
So explain that, because a lot of people kind of have questions when it comes to the volume on that.
Yeah, it basically, and I haven't looked at the actual, but once you get past 80, every increment adds a lot more volume than what was previously happening. So as you're turning up for a while, at the beginning going like 0 to 60, there's not a lot of change, and then once you get to the second half, it ramps up a lot more.
Well, because we have had people who are like, I've got it up on 50 or 60 already, and it's not going up in volume. Yeah. But the real volume comes after 80. I mean, I had it playing at 60 something day. It was just fine.
Yeah.
But like when you're thinking you're cranking and you're already up to 60 and you're not getting a big a big sound. Once you get to 80, it's dramatic.
Yeah, and the idea is, you can be kind of precise with, you're moving things. It's not a big jump at the beginning, and there's definitely some pluses. But if you are going up to past 60, 80, that's totally normal.
All right, so the front, I'm going to get that, because I cannot see all the way on that side at this point, so I'm going to get this side of the front, and you're going to get that side. And since you're on their left, you can start.
Okay. I have the 2-band EQ, which it is treble and bass, and, I like their EQs. EQs, I'm from the pro world. I never use EQs. They can, if they're not done well, you can have some noise, mess up some phase and things like that. But I do really like their EQs. They're smooth. They don't mess up the musicality. I do find myself turning up the bass on Hint 6s and P6s. Yeah, I do love to do that. And I would never do that, but I do actually like the way that it sounds. And you do, and this is kind of rare, you have a separate subwoofer volume control. It's in the middle is kind of where you'd want to start, but you can just quickly turn up the bass, lower the bass on your subwoofer, which again isn't a big thing, but I've totally met people that will get behind their sub every time they change the CD to kind of tune it to that CD, and you can do that very, very quickly on the front of the P6 or the Hint 6.
This incorporates really well in home theater, and we'll get to that, but between that sub function and the bypass, people who already have a home theater system will love this preamp, putting it in there, and then they're going to add the amp and all that. So there is all the inputs across the bottom. There's a ton of inputs on this thing. So you got 5 analogs, a phono, and then a home theater bypass plus a balance in. So you got a lot of inputs.
The big thing for me is the versatility. I mean, you have your digital. There's USB coax.
I didn't even say those.
You have more controls than you would usually expect. The pre-out has a crossover as well as the subwoofer out. So there is a high pass filter on the pre-out and a low pass on the subwoofer out. That kind of control is very cool. I mean, there's a lot of different ways people kind of try to accomplish that crossover between their speakers and subs. You might have, someone running their whole signal through their sub before it goes to the amp or something like that. And this kind of allows you to have things, your audio path be very clear and direct from your preamp to your amp and subwoofer, and also have that crossing over control to really dial everything in.
And across the front, you have all the input lights. So every time you turn the little input knob, you get the relay click, and it changes the inputs, which I do like. It makes it feel tactile. You have the balance knob right next to it, and that doesn't have any tactile clicks or anything. But
does it have the notch in the middle?
Let's see. Yes.
Okay, good.
Dude, it does.
Nice.
I was like, I'm not going to be able to set this even. And yes, it is a notch, so it stops right there in the middle. And your volume knob feels very good. It's built well, no notches, no clicks. But the display is really clear and nice, so as you change that, and there's a remote as well, so you can change the volume. So a lot of versatility where you don't actually even have to go up to it, because if you're using it in that home theater bypass mode in a system, you may not be going all the way up during your movie. All right, so we're going to talk about the home theater bypass a little bit, which can be a little complicated, and I'm sorry, we will even trip once in a while on how this works. It is simple, but explaining it can be a little tough sometimes. So you can incorporate this into your home theater. You have the pre-outs go from your AVR to the home theater bypass on this. If home theater bypass is on, it bypasses the volume control in the preamp and lets you control your amplifier through the AVR. But then if you have a turntable, maybe you don't want to hook that up to the AVR. You want to hook your turntable and any other hi-fi components up to this preamp. So you hook your phono in. When you turn that to that input instead of home theater bypass, you're then controlling the volume on the preamp from your turntable going to the same amp, and then you can have like better 2-channel sound, because AVRs are meant for home theater.
Yeah, and even vice versa. I mean, you don't necessarily want your home theater movie sound running through, a 2-channel preamp.
Or maybe you do.
Maybe you do, It gives you that ability to switch entirely between a multi-channel system and a 2-channel system set up properly without a switcher or doing any wires. Everything's just running through each other in a way that is still clean and keeps a pure audio path.
And if it helps, it's kind of, if you look at it like it's 2 preamps and 1 amp.
Yes.
That's how it would work.
But, double preamping isn't a good thing. So that's why the home theater bypassing that second preamp when you need to makes everything work perfectly.
Yeah, it's an amazing feature. If you do have questions and you don't understand what we just said, because sometimes I listen to it and I don't understand, really? Just call us. We'll help you with those questions and explain how it works in your specific system, because everybody's system is set up different. So it might be more helpful if you call us. We can kind of explain how that works if that's something you're looking to do. All right, talking about the phono and all the inputs, let's get to that. So it has a moving magnet and a moving coil cartridge input. And it has 2 different adjustable impedances. It has 147,000. So you can adjust your moving coil depending on the cartridge, and then you can go to moving magnet, which is set at 47,000. So on the back, there's 5 analog RCA inputs. There's also 1 balanced input, a record out.
Oh yeah, that's very handy.
The record out's nice. Not a tape monitor, but it's a record out. So you can put the full output of whatever signal you got going to something else if you have volume control on something else. Then there's the home theater bypass, which there's also a sub left and right bypass. So you can add a sub into that as well.
Yeah.
So sub 1 and 2 on the home theater bypass. I've never actually used that, but it would work in theory the exact same way.
Yeah, you would need that to go with, because the signal going to your amp and subwoofers, that's just as important.
Right.
Do the same thing.
Yeah, and then if you're hooking subs direct to this and not using the home theater bypass, there's a sub output with a crossover built in. Explain how that helps.
Having the subwoofer crossover just lets you really dial in the way that the subwoofer blends with the speakers. It's really handy if maybe you have a subwoofer that doesn't have a crossover control or something like that. And you can also just get everything done in the preamp before it even leaves, and things are usually a little bit cleaner that way. Sometimes to dial in your speaker, your system sound entirely, you might want to roll off from the speakers, you know, and that is just, you know, like I got some speakers right now that go down to like 25 hertz, you know, and I do like to kind of let them just go and dial in the subwoofer to reinforce, but there is a world where it would be a little bit cleaner, you know, if you have a really big sub that is tony, like a rel, you know, if you rolled off some of that low end that the speakers are putting out, and it's not interfering too much with each other, you know, maybe that's a little bit cleaner. You would want to mess around with it and figure out what you think sounds the best.
Is it like a volume control?
No, it's a filter.
Okay. So what happens when you turn it down?
It does technically turn up and down. It's going from a low frequency to a high frequency, but you're just kind of dialing it in, and it is what's called a high pass filter. So wherever you set it, if you set it like 60 hertz, you know, starting at 60 hertz, it starts to roll off, you know, volume.
At 60.
Mm-hmm.
So then any of those, so maybe you have that tied to what you have the sub at,
mm-hmm.
and if they're both at 60, the low tones go to the sub, the high tones go to the speakers.
Yeah, see, I haven't actually messed with that. You can actually...
I would love to hear the comments on this one.
Yeah, I know, and this kind of...
see, like, how you guys would use this, because it's so flexible.
Yeah, no, there's actually a lot of different ways you can use it, and I'm kind of thinking about that perfect crossover, you know, when you have, like, the speakers rolling off like this.
And this is totally not me. I do not use this, that's why I'm, like, referring to you, because I just turn it... Maybe that's why the other day...
Well, no, you may get a more precise crossover between your amp and your speakers actually just doing it entirely on this. I haven't really messed with that.
We should mess with that.
Yeah.
So then there's all the digital inputs. You have a USB, a coaxial, and 2 opticals. Mm-hmm. So that'll all go into your DAC.
Mm-hmm. USB is technically, you know, it usually has like an extra chip, and the clock's a little bit tighter. So I always prefer USB. If you can use it, I mean, obviously for computers, if you're using a streamer, but a lot of streamers do have some USB outputs built on the back, so that's what I would recommend, but you do have all the options.
Then as far as balanced outs, you have that for your right and your left to go to the amp, but there's also a sub-balanced out, which is kind of cool.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, just a mono sub, yeah. Wow.
Right?
You know, I'm getting to the point where it's like, you learn so much about audio.
We've literally used this combo for like 5 years now,
yeah.
And every time you look at it, you're like, oh yeah, you can do that too.
And I know those things, it just, you know.
We don't script these, it's okay.
But these are all the things that I go, oh yeah, those are things that like, you really don't see on other preamps.
No, it's not.
It's a feature that just like, at this price point, the P6 is the one doing all the stuff.
So while on the preamp, the RCA and XLR outs are spaced together, on the amp it's a little different. So let's go to the A21 Plus, which should be laid out fairly similar to the A23. On the back of the amp, the jacks are spaced out. So like you can't use an RCA cable that's like one cable, you have to use separate cables.
Yeah, you're
like
using a Chicago, Red River, or
Pegasus.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But they're almost as big as the amp.
Yeah.
There's 2 gains. There's a gain for each channel. I guess that's just another way of balancing the amplifier out. If you need one channel less than the other, you can do that.
I've never used it like that. I guess you can do it. It's definitely cleaner just because with the 2 independent channels, you just have their own gain knob instead of one like master gain, mm-hmm. you know. But I mean, yeah, you know, that definitely gives you that flexibility. You know, it is a cool feature because you can get a very, you know, just in-your-face sound out of these amps. You know, if you like a little bit more of a relaxed sound, and that is something that I do notice with the A23 at home, it's a little more mellow, where like this with the gain all the way up can really hit your speakers, which is great. You're definitely not losing anything, but I do like to be able to dial that back and just mellow it out a little.
There is a loop output,
which is cool. So if you got your,
I'm glad you know.
Well, if you got one, like there are some preamps that have multiple pre-outs, you know, if you're going to multiple places. But with this, you got the one pre-out on the back, and you can just loop through this. So you can hit this amp and then go somewhere else.
That's actually a really cool feature. Mm-hmm. I've never actually used it.
You know, I mean, you can go to a sub from there and...
Another amp,
whatever you want to do.
Wow. You can just stack these up.
You can.
There's switches on the back, like nice.
Yeah.
Switches
are nice.
for...
Usually when I don't get any sound when we're doing a demo, it's because I don't have the switch set right.
They have it on unbalanced instead of balanced.
It's switching between RCA and XLR, so that's a big thing, and that's nice to keep everything pure and independent. You know, you either have one on or off, and then you have the bridge capability. Is the switch in the middle?
Yeah, and you actually hook the speakers up differently when you do it as a bridge setup. So I think it's both you put it in both the positives.
Yes. Yeah. So, you know, essentially the bridge is taking the two independent channels and combining it into one monoblock amp. Basically turns your 2-channel amp into a 1-channel amp, and you get it just really ramps up the power. You know, basically you'd be getting like 400 watts at 8 ohms with this bridge. Usually that's how they do. I should look at the specs and that, but usually it's like whatever you were getting at 8 ohms is like, hold on.
I usually kind of double it in my head, but not all amps double it. I think it's not quite double.
They're all different. Yeah. I'm slaughtering this.
You're going to get
that.
Nah, it's okay. We don't script these. It's okay. Everybody else is like staring at a teleprompter. We're literally we use it all day long. So
I'll go in, like, I'm ready to dive into like this thing, and I'm like, I'm getting all jumbled up, but.
Yeah, as soon as you start thinking about it, like we had like 3 people come in here this morning. The Parasound was up there. We explained the difference between like the Parasounds and the Yamaha and the Cyrus that are all up there right now. And then when you like go sit down with it, you're like, So yeah, it's totally cool. The speaker terminals on the back of this are very nice. They have this like grip to unscrew. There's got to be a word for it. Everything's done up in gold, and there's handles because the amp is so heavy. I actually don't use the handles on this one. I carry this one. Actually, I do grip the handle, though.
The handles are great for getting it out of the box.
Oh, that's true.
I shouldn't say it. Maybe we should be more careful with. But, you know, I usually grab by the handle and just...
What are you supposed to, like, be more careful at getting it out of the box?
Well,
when you're holding, like, a 50, 60-pound amp or whatever this is, it's just getting it out of the box.
It's just putting it down. You got to be careful because you don't want to just put it down on this face plate. And you got the wings, and so you got to, like, kind of shimmy it on the front feet.
Because they're rack mountable. You can rack mount these. They make, you know, the mounts that you can replace the front with and put it on the rack. So it's a great combo. Comparing it to like the Yamaha
you know what? There is
R-N2000a.
We did skip one thing.
Oh, we did? What is it?
It's the trigger system.
Oh, yeah. I did. I was thinking about that earlier. I'm like, I never use the trigger, so maybe I don't talk about it, but you do.
Well, you know, you can just have triggers off where it's just all the power buttons on the front. You can have the triggers where everything turns on based on that trigger signal. Or there's that manual, like kind of built into that section, you can set the auto power on and off. So this is what I love. I don't use the trigger.
Dude, I haven't used that in like forever.
I don't actually have trigger cables going because not everything I have has triggers. But I'll just start running signal through my system and it hits the amp and it just turns on after like 3 seconds. And
it turns on by the audio signal. The audio signal turns it on.
Which is just nice because, you know, I'm not one of those guys where I run my system all day. I do keep it off, and so I got to, like, turn everything off and on one by one. I can just not do that with this. I can just put it on the CD, and
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I do like how on the top they have the Parasound logo, like, etched in.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the build and the aesthetics is always something that, for me, Parasound is kind of unique in. It's, you know, they don't do, like, VU meters, you know, once you get to the Halo series and all that, and I know people really do love that, and I know I'm from the pro world, so I can go along with...
They more wanted to blend into the environment. It looked nice. Now, go ahead.
The sound, like, I just think that it's like you're taking things from all that, and it's all just going into the sound, the quality of the amp, and I've just always been a fan of that philosophy, you know, and that's one of my favorite part about the Parasound products. Now,
looks of these, we are probably giving a bad example because the ones that we have are the discontinued silver models. So, like, this P6 in silver is not even available anymore. It's just in black, which I actually like the black way more than the silver. And I guess in different environments, one works and one doesn't work. But the black, like, you got the black A23.
I actually don't.
It's silver?
It is, yeah.
Oh, we just wouldn't have been able to show a black one at all.
yeah. There's I don't think they're black.
They're black with the gold trim. They look amazing.
It's the gold
I'll
trim.
put a picture of Dave Tracy's JC3 that we did, the JC3 Plus. This is the system we've been working on out in Indiana. Which, by the way, that Phono preamp makes your albums almost sound like CDs. That's the only way I can describe it. I don't know if that's a good thing, saying it that way. But it just unbelievable Phono preamp. But anyway, I think the black looks way better, a little bit of gold trim, and that's why that's the one they're sticking with.
I agree. The black is definitely just more elegant. I mean, the silver's classic, but they have a nice looking black sheen.
Because it's more of like a champagne silver too, so it's not like full silver like vintage stuff or like the Yamaha. All right, so now we're going to compare this stack to the other things that we've had in the store the past couple days. So the Yamaha R-N2000a, which was also the last video we did. How does this sound in comparison?
Sound-wise, you know, you are getting a little bit more warmth and oomph with Parasound.
Did you just try to combine warmth and warmth? Yeah, was that coming? I heard it coming.
That is what that was. Yeah,
it's got a lot of warmth. I like it. I have to get you a t-shirt.
But I'm
which
not
we almost sold out of all of our t-shirts this week, so we might have to order that one.
I'm not gonna be able to finish this. The Yamaha is just very transparent and just totally disappears, but it's smooth, you know. So you're gonna have sharper transients and better punch on the Parasound, but you know, it's a little bit more relaxed and smoother with the Yamaha, and they're both giving you full current with, you know, nice big transformers, nice big caps. They both perform very well.
All right, now the other system that we have hooked up is kind of the complete opposite of this. While this is taking up 80% of the screen right now, we're just little people on the sides, the Cyrus 40 series.
Yeah.
Which is the most, it's probably an odd combination to have comparing to this because of the size, but it's a totally different sound.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, they, you know, because we're looking at, this is like an American company, and you know, the Yamaha's Japanese. The Cyrus, it's more UK.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is. Yeah. So, and I guess, I don't know, I've never really like looked into what that officially is, but you know, I feel with the Cyrus, the highs are a little bit more prevalent. It's generally a pretty neutral, just clean sound.
A little more analytical.
Yeah, definitely. That's good.
They're very pure.
Yeah.
Right? It's analytical, it's pure.
Quick, it's accurate, you know, things like that.
Not a combination many people are probably trying to decide behind, honestly, because it's two different products. They're very different. Same thing, you know, it's an integrated amp or it's separates or whatever, but you're probably not always comparing them. The one that people probably are comparing a lot, and that we've already got questions about, is Advanced Paris.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people ask the comparisons between Advanced Paris and the Parasound. We get that all the time, and they both make separates, they both make integrateds, so I think it's a really good comparison because Advanced Paris is a hot brand right now. The Parasound's been a hot brand for a long time.
Yeah, you know, Parasound is an American company. Advanced Paris it's out of France. They are similar in a lot of ways. Their amps both, you know, whether it's a separate amp or the amp included in an integrated amp, they do just give you a little bit more power, a little bit more current than kind of the norm, especially at their price points. I do find, you know, aesthetically they're very different.
They are very different aesthetically.
You
the meters on the Advanced Paris, the like reflective front, and their new products don't have the reflective front, but they have the meters. I can't wait for the Advanced Paris Nova line.
Yeah, that's going to be insane. Yeah. But sonically, they are a little different, where the Advanced Paris is more transparent, where this kind of has that grit, that sound a little bit, you know, mainly in the mid-range. But, you know, Advanced Paris will really, they're both going to really drive your speakers and get a lot out of them, but you'll get a little bit more of like an open sound stage with Advanced Paris, where this, you know, you're feeling it a little bit more. But they're pretty close.
And it's really like what you want, what type of speakers you have, what you're looking for, the type of music you listen to. Like
I would say that's the biggest thing.
When people call us, like all the phone calls, we're just trying to help match up all their systems to get the right component. Because you could go with this, you could go with that, but it's making sure it's what you want in the end, so that you're happy and it sounds good. So the other thing they both have in common is so many inputs, outputs, options, functionality. Advanced Paris has so many functions.
Moving coil capability, you know.
And Parasound does the same thing, just different functions. So like while Advanced Paris may have HDMI, Parasound doesn't have HDMI.
But you have home theater true bypass.
Right. But I think that's probably a really good comparison. A lot of people do ask the differences between them. We actually get a lot of Parasound, what does it mix well with? Because some people do like the HDMI, or they do like, you know, some more digital stuff or a streamer or anything. And so you're always putting maybe components into this system, but let's say you want to mix with a different preamp or something, because maybe you want the Parasound sounding amp is amazing, but maybe the preamp doesn't have the functionality that you're looking for, and that is totally fine. It happens. What's another one that like people really kind of get into with mixing with Parasound?
Well, the Audiolab 9000Q.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the 9000A integrated amps, their flagship integrated. They earlier this year released the preamp and amp separately, and now we got the DACs coming out with headphone amps and
your favorite CD player.
The CD transport.
9000 CDT. Don't forget to mention that.
And the streamer's good too.
The 9000N.
Yeah, at this point. But you know, before we moved into the store, the system that I had set up was a Audiolab 9000Q into this A21 Plus. I had the VC Ones as the speakers, and it was pretty nice. It was very clean. You know, you had the smooth, transparent sound, kind of that Brit-Fi sound with the Audiolab 9000Q, which
that's an interesting mix.
I thought that combined well with the the AMT tweeters on the VC Ones, and the punch and transients I was getting out of those VC Ones with the A21 Plus was pretty awesome. And so, like, all together, you know, I did, it's a very clean, kind of more quicker, faster analytical system. But the amp, I thought, kind of rounded everything out with that oomph and that warmth in the mid-range. And I thought I was getting best of performance. Yeah, both with the performance and the kind of warmth and sound. And I don't know, I was just checking every box, and highs were smooth, and it was great.
So you made a good point, something we didn't talk about yet. What speakers does this pair well with?
Yeah.
So right now we have it hooked up behind us to the Forte 4s.
Sure.
We have the Leak Sandwich 150s. We have the MOFI Sourcepoint 8s. We have the VC Ones. Is there a type of speaker you think this matches or pairs well with? Or really, I mean, because that always does like rely on what the end user or the audiophile wants in their system, the sound they're looking for. But like, what for you is a good speaker pairing?
They all kind of work very well. The VC One, I thought the MonAcoustic, the Platamon VC Ones, they're bookshelves, and it's they're 4 ohms. They just like that power. It just pressurizes the room more, and there's the transients hit harder. And then you look at like the Klipsch Heritage, you have those horns, that can be kind of finicky, and the highs are rolled off very well for that, and everything's nice. And you'd think, oh, they're very efficient, you can run them with a 1-watt amp, but they just really open them up very nicely. You give them all that power and all that current, and they like that too. And I don't know, if I really had to think about it, there's got to be something that I'm like, yeah, this is what you really want. I mean, if you got something floor standing or something that's power hungry, you're going to love the Parasounds. But yeah, they just go well with everything. Amps, it's kind of more of a technical thing. It's just about driving your speakers and getting performance out of them. There is a sonic capability, but I think the actual electrical engineering is the more important part, and Parasound just knocks it out of the park.
Yeah. Well, if you have questions about the A21 Plus, the P6, or any other Parasound products, reach out to us. You can text us, call us, and we'll help see where maybe it can fit into your system, because when you call and text us, you actually get us. So we'd love to help you guys out. Build your next hi-fi system. But for today, for the Parasound P6, the A21 Plus, the A23 Plus that's at your house and not here on the stack, because then nobody would be able to see us at all, we will see you guys next time.